3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody. This is Exercises Medicine, episode number 17 here at Drexel University. And today it is my distinct honor and pleasure to bring a good friend of mine, Mr. Stephen Westbrook, who is the entrepreneur of Stephen Westbrook Training Systems. He's going to talk to us a little bit about his journey, his approach to fitness, and we'll have a nice conversation about some of the things I think that people who listen to this podcast regularly or not can really get from his approach to fitness and really wellness and how it can help all of you in your own lives. So without further ado, we bring to you Stephen Westbrook. Stephen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here, especially to see the fruition of it from when we first had the conversation at the beginning of the pandemic, like, hey, we're trying to do this, and then to see it flourish in this way. So I'm happy to be a part of the journey.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, Stephen and I first met each other when he was working here at Drexel as part of, what was the actual program itself, Stephen?
The Recreational Athletics Department.
The Recreational Athletics Department, yeah. So obviously during COVID, things changed, and we were sort of just starting. For those of you that don't know, we started the Exercises Medicine, became an ACSM Exercise is Medicine credentialed campus with the American College of Sports Medicine on January 25th, I believe it was, of 2020. So we were brand new. We were just starting to formulate this thing. And so a lot of our meetings were sort of trying to figure out and circumnavigate this COVID-19 pandemic. And ironically, Stephen's been going on and he's done some really great things since he's moved on from Drexel. And kind of funny how last November we just happened to be sitting in the same coffee shop with each other.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm meeting with my friend Travis, who we'll have on the podcast perhaps in the future. And I'm like, I think that's Stephen Westbrook. And I'm like, I want to go say hi, but I'm not sure. Like, what if it's not Stephen Westbrook? And at this point, it was probably about a good a good year after you had moved on from Drexel, I think. About that or no?
Was it that long?
This was probably in 22, like November of 22.
What year is it? It's just maybe a year. Maybe like a little under a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm going to go say hi. And it was you, and it was great seeing you around the holiday season. And we had, wanted to connect and talk and catch up. And we had the ability to do that. And then I asked you to be on this podcast. So, I guess what would really be helpful is what we like to do on the podcast is really learn about people's journeys.
Okay.
So what was your first exposure for fitness? How did you get into fitness, and what was your first experience where you're like, you know what, fitness is something that I think is important to me?
I think the first time that I got introduced to fitness was my mom put me in martial arts at 4 or 5. I was a tiny kid, and I didn't grow into my body until until I got to college. So I was very, very tiny, all throughout middle school, high school, college, and that foundation for movement, the foundation of discipline, just kind of stuck with me. My mom wanted me to be able to defend myself, but also she wanted me to be able to focus on one task at a time. At the time, especially in the Black community, we didn't really know about ADHD, and it was really I had a learning disability, so I'm dyslexic, and also I had ADHD, which I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until the pandemic.
Wow.
So for a long time, I was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and which in Black men, there's a comorbidity with depression, anxiety, and so a lot of times it looks like bipolar disorder when it's actually adult ADHD, which just looking at the history of how I learn, I look at it less like a learning disability and just look at it as I just learn differently. I'm a audiovisual and kinesthetic learner, so I need to see it in action and then experience it in my body, which is why I'm such a mover. I am more creative when I move. Like when it comes to navigating relationship with people, being an educator, I am a better educator when I have moved. My brain functions more properly, and it makes sense. Just thinking about the neuroscience of movement, that when you exercise, it creates a neurogenic effect on the brain, and the hippocampus is fully active so that you can really learn and function properly. Like your brain goes into hyperdrive. So for me, I think like my brain goes on to like 100-fold. So like I can communicate more effectively after I've exercised, after I've moved my body. So like I started with movement when I was very young, and then I just stuck with it. And I wanted to try everything. I have been the type of mover that I need to try it to see if I like it. There were a lot of things that I did not like. So like I did basketball because my parents wanted me to do it. Did not like it. But I'm a competitive person, so if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability. And then like when the season's over, don't do this again. So I did basketball first. I still was in martial arts, and then I got into running. Running was just like, it's a practice of discipline and mental fortitude and just will, and it reminded me so much of martial arts. So like martial arts and running took me all the way up through college.
Gotcha.
And then in college I got injured, so I couldn't run anymore. I got into powerlifting, which is another practice of discipline. So what I realized, I was like, I need to do things that are hard, that require willpower and like tenacity, consistency. And I got into the powerlifting because of my knee injury from running, and then I developed a back injury. And then I was like, dang, my knee is jacked up, my back is jacked up. So I fell into yoga because I experienced a lot of depression, like naturally, my mental wellness disposition was one to lean into depression. So like either like speaking in the language of bipolar disorder, I was either in mania or either in depression. So like I was constantly navigating the scalar experience of being like, well, not well, but just like high and then low.
Sure.
And so I really wanted to find, like, I was in the best shape of my life, but I really wanted to be more emotionally well. And that's how I found yoga. Yoga was was my saving grace. I got into cycling, and then it's just been a constant snowball effect of just collecting certifications and like disciplines. But I think the things that I have stuck with, or will always stick with: martial arts, running, yoga, and Pilates, which is a newer somatic wellness practice that I am learning. So yeah.
Wow, that's quite the journey.
Yeah, it's been
It evolved over time, right?
It has. I think so my parents are in medicine. Like they had a very firm, they were in medicine and they were in ministry. So it was a very high expectation to either go into ministry or to go into medicine. And they both have, at the core of their experiences, it's a focus on caring for people, which is just kind of ingrained in my lived experience. I love my parents. They are sometimes annoying, but I love them very much. And I went to Bible college. When I was in high school, like it was kind of just a part of our experience, like being cultivated into leadership and into ministry. And it was very challenging also finding out that I was a queer person. Like it was, so that there was definitely some disconnect with my parents because they were like, okay, this is not an alignment with what we believe or what we expected for your lived experience. And I think it was more out of fear of what could happen to me and for me. Like I'm a very sensitive person, and so like navigating community as a queer person, as a Black queer person is very challenging. It's enough being a Black man, but then it's being a Black queer man. And it's just like, they're like, okay, you're adding struggle onto your plate when it's already hard enough as a Black man. So it shifted from ministry to medicine. I was pre-med at Temple University, and then I realized that I hated medicine. Like I was in the pre-med volunteer program at University of Pennsylvania. I loved the cardiovascular department. I loved the sports medicine department, like all the things that aligned with like movement and like that worked with my brain. I was just into it. When I got to the infectious disease department, it was a no-go for me. First of all, it was the smells. The smells were the worst part. When they opened the body up and then like just seeing how they treat like necrotic tissue with some of the old Eastern remedies, but honestly, it was the smell. Like the smell got to you. The smell got to me. Like it made me throw up every time, and I was just like, I can't do this. So then I was like, maybe I should try dentistry. So I did a couple rotations, and I did some work with my dad. He's an endodontist, and I was just like, maybe I should. This is the thing. Like he's into like root canals and like opening people's gums up. It was just gross. And then again, it was the smells, and I was just like, this is disgusting. So I was like, I feel like there's another way that I can care for people. Mind you, I didn't tell my parents that I wanted to switch my degree. So when they got the bill that I had switched degrees, I switched to a more expensive program. And they were like, what are you doing? So my parents were like, you're on your own. I was a super senior because I switched my major. Mm-hmm. I switched over to the School of Science and Technology to Neuroscience. Because I really wanted to understand the brain, especially my brain. And then I did a dual degree program in psychology, and I just fell in love with it. Like I fell in love with understanding people, understanding myself, understanding how the brain works and how we respond to the outside world. And movement was always a part of that experience. So after I graduated, I worked for a little bit, and then I decided I did the graduate program at University of Penn when I was working there. Like it just made sense. Like it's free. Like why not do it? And then after that I got into research, and my thought was I want to work with other people of color because I was in programs that were predominantly white, sure, or they were full of people that were not from America that were doing the program, and so like there's not always a correlation with foreigners, like people that are from other countries. And I think there is a connotation of people that are not from America about Black Americans. And so there's definitely a disconnect. And I just didn't feel well connected community-wise in my program. So when I got out of the program and I went to work for the National Institute of Health, and I was like, oh, there's so many Black principal investigators here and doctors, and I could just like build community in this science field where like I am one of a few. Mm-hmm. And that did not happen. Like I called my parents and I was just like super distraught, and they were like, well, you got to finish it. Like you started it, finish it. So I finished it, and then I came home and I was like, I think I want to be a fitness instructor. So my mom was like, absolutely not. You have $100,000 worth of debt. You need a real job. And I was like, that is a real job. And my mom was like, no. And she's like, that's not even your personality. And at the time I probably wasn't a people person, but when you work in a lab, you deal with mice, you deal with specimens. So it's not a big community. It's not like a people thing, right? People space. So I was like, I bet you I can. And I'm a person that's like, I'm very petty. So like, I'm gonna succeed when you think that I can't. And so she said, okay, you can come home. You can be here for 6 months. Like, you don't have to pay any bills. You can come home for 6 months, and after 6 months, you have to have a job. So I ran through my savings. I traveled. I hung out with my friends, connected with my family. And then it got down to the wire. And my mom was like, you need a job. So I applied at Philadelphia Sports Club. I got it as I was the sales manager. And then I literally fell into fitness. So one of my instructors decided not to come into work, and I needed to teach a cycling class. I literally had sneakers, dress pants, and a polo on. And so I took the polo off and I taught the class in a tank top and business pants and some sneakers. And people were like, they loved my playlist. They were like, your music is so good, your energy is so good. And they're like, you should do this more often. And I was like, you know what? I've been thinking about it. And I literally just, after that, I just started picking up certs. And it's been that way for a very long time.
Very cool. Very cool. One of the things that you said that's touched upon from, I would say, other guests and comes through as a common theme is this concept of self-awareness, right? It's just kind of like knowing what's for you and what's not for you and being honest with yourself. Because a lot of times when I talk with students, is a student might come in and say, you know what, I want to be a PA and that's it. I want to be a physician assistant and that's it. And then I'm like, well, what's your backup plan if that doesn't work out? And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? There is no backup. That's going to happen. What are you talking about? And so it's not that I'm trying to prime them that that's not the career for them. It's that, life happens and different circumstances, things are more or less impressionable on you. And so you want to think about, do you want to be a physician assistant because you really love the field? Or is it that maybe, mom or dad is a physician assistant or aunt and uncle, right? A friend, and you want to, do it because there's people close to you that you care about that have what appears to be a very good life. And so what's the real why, right? And so
it's safety in what you know. And if that's all you know, you're going to go towards what is safe.
Right. But there's one thing that I would say. So I had a meeting, and one of the things is that I had a student a couple of years back who wanted to be a physician assistant, got into a nurse practitioner program, and then the physician assistant opportunity opened back up, and she ended up getting in. So she's like, which one of these opportunities do I take? And I'm like, well, which one do you want to take? Don't ask me what you want, right? I can give you some pros and cons, but what in your heart really is what you feel you should do? And she made the decision, and I believe she went the nurse practitioner route, and she's very happy doing that.
Yeah.
So it's really refreshing to see that even though at times, I don't want to say that you weren't supported, it was that it seems like you had folks in your life that said, hey, Steven, you might want to think twice about doing the fitness industry, that, you were provided a home for 6 months to get a job, right? So that's a different level of support.
Yeah.
And you ended up finding a position that was right for you. And who knows, like you said, literally fell into fitness. So you didn't probably expect to be teaching that class. And then here you go. And you started you've been getting certifications ever since then. So pretty interesting.
I tell a lot of people that want to transition into the fitness industries that you need to have a community behind you. Even though my family was like, this is crazy. Like you have $100,000 worth of debt. I was always the smart kid. So they were just like, you're not even using your brain. And I'm like, but you do. And they just didn't understand it. And so my mom, who is my biggest supporter, she supported everything that I've done. She will bitch and moan about it. And she'll be like, oh, no, I don't think you should do that. And she'll give me her very, very truthful, honest opinion. But she has supported everything that I've done. There was a lot of skepticism around me going into fitness. It was unknown. That just wasn't our thing. I've always been an athlete. So she was like, okay, that's a natural inclination for you to go into what you know. It feels safe. But it was also very unknown to us. And they were like, my parents were like, how are you going to make money? And when I first went into teaching group fitness full on, I was only making $10 an hour. And so they were like, you went from making $26, $30 an hour to making $10 an hour. And they were like, how are you going to support yourself? And so I learned to hustle. So at one point I was teaching 40 classes a week. Wow. I was a psycho. I don't know if that's okay to say, but I'm of an older age and from an older generation. So but I was really in it. And so I think there's so many different subcultures within fitness. People don't understand, as a group fitness instructor, there is a present issue with body dysmorphia. There is an issue with eating. There's so many things that go into, there's so many external expectations of how you're supposed to look, how you're supposed to perform. You're always supposed to be happy and bright and super snatched in your body. It's all these things, these expectations that come with that life. So I tell a lot of, especially when I was running I was the director of fitness and wellness at Drexel. I told a lot of my students that were coming in, like, hey, this is not something that you just do. You need a community behind you, and that I educated them about all the darkness that is surrounding the fitness community, because there's a lot of gatekeeping, there's a lot of cliquishness, and there's a lot of positives, but working in the industry can be a little problematic. And so, like, as a Christian Black man who is queer, like, I've had to navigate that space very cautiously. Because, like, especially as a Black man, there's a lot of there's a lot of hypersexualness that surrounds being Black and in fitness. There's an expectation of how you're supposed to look, how you're perceived. A lot of times in spaces, I've had to reassert my boundaries.
Sure.
Because, like, in fitness, people just, if you don't wear any clothes, people just assume, like, they can just touch you. And, like, and I was telling a lot of my female students, like, hey, if you're in this space, these are the things that you're going to experience. Like, and not to take it lightly. Like, make sure that you have your boundaries, make sure that you affirm for yourself your body autonomy and your space. And I think navigating as a queer Black man in those spaces, I can have empathy for women in the space. And so, like, I've tried to take my experience in that space, in that community, in that career field, and share that with the next generation, because I think it's a lot of things that we went through generationally that the next generation will never go through, because it was just different times.
Sure.
But there are sort of nuances of the past that are currently present in our experiences, like institutional racism. Like, yes, things get better, but there are still some toxic things that are just ingrained in the experience that just are going to take a little bit longer to get rid of, like hypersexualness in the community. There's a focus on hypermasculinity. There's a lot of things that are in the community that are really toxic that we may hide as we're trying to become more progressive, but they really haven't gotten better. And so, like, my job is, as an educator, as a leader, as a facilitator, is to make sure that we shine a light on these things and make sure that these students that are going into these programs, that are going into this career field, they know exactly what they're getting into, and that they can navigate it effectively because they've already been informed before they get there. Because, like, I didn't know a lot of things about the industry. Like, I was a scientist moving into something that is, like, all about hustle. Like, it is like you are an entrepreneur as soon as you step in the door. And it's like, how do you build your business? How do you build your brand? How do you build your community? Like, and then, like, what can you say? What can you not say? How can you touch people? How can you not touch people? Like, my biggest thing as an educator, like a movement educator, is not being a creep. Like, and there's a lot of creepy people in fitness, and you have to be like, and especially when, like, as a yoga teacher, like, I've had male yoga teachers that were, like, really creepy, and I was just like, ugh. So, like, it has been really important for me not to be that, like, to really be empathetic and caring, and to ask permission before I'm in someone's spaces, before I touch them. And as a scientist in the exercise science field, you understand that trauma, memories don't just live in our brain. Like, they are stored in neuroclusters in the body. So specific movements, specific touches can activate those traumatic memories in the body. And so I'm very cautious, like, understanding the neuroscience, understanding the psychology of movement, that you really need to be aware of how you interact with people, how you touch them, how you care for them in that moment, because you never want to cause harm.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I would say that, even we've done exercise physiology labs, and ironically today, the same day that you're here interviewing with us is really not interviewing for a job, but I'm conducting an interview with you.
I'll take another job.
You'll take another job?
Yeah, I'll take another job.
Okay. But we have body composition today. So we were doing things like subcutaneous skin fold assessments and BIA. And so for some people that can be relatively illuminating. People are going to see how much of their total weight comes from fat mass, how much comes from lean mass, water mass. the nature of skinfold testing needs to actually be pinching and touching somebody else. So always the way that I follow a very similar approach. If someone's having a hard time doing a skinfold assessment, whether it's the person that is learning the skill to take the skinfold or it's the person that's having the skinfold taking on them, is always so in order to, help demonstrate, is it okay if I, touch your back of your arm? That is very important, as you said, because you don't have the right just to do it.
Yes.
That's the very important thing, right? You don't have the right just to do that. So asking permission, respecting people's space, super, super important. To just quickly comment on your experience in the fitness industry, mine was very similar. So when I first got into the fitness industry, I had changed my major 3 different times. 3 times. So I completely get it with student loans and all that. I started off as a psychology major.
Everybody does,
right? And I said, because I was in high school, and my track and field coach his name was Coach Alan Strauss, and he was a really profound figure in my life that really kind of made me feel like I can move forward and be something significant in this life. And so when I went to college, they're like, yeah, if you want to teach psychology in high school, you really should go do history. And then you'll subspecialize in psych, and then you'll get a job as a history teacher, and then you'll be able to teach psychology maybe 1 or 2 periods in high school, right? That was kind of the idea. And then I'm like, I did good in history, but like, I don't really enjoy reading about history. That was my situation. So I was playing college football and doing a lot of strength and conditioning workouts, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, what if I just went and be a physical education teacher? Went and did that, and then I took exercise physiology. So at about this time, it was all coming together. My junior year, I was a super senior as well. And I got certified by, at the time, the National Academy of Sports Medicine. It's one of those certifications that's on the wall over there. I still maintain it to this day, even though I don't really practice personal training as a profession anymore.
Yeah.
And I started working at Bally. So I'm like, great, I got my certified personal trainer certification. I'm ready to go. I'm going to go be a trainer. And then as soon as I got hired, they're like, well, you have a really good personality, so we're going to hire you, but we're not going to hire you to be a trainer. We're going to hire you to go be a fitness coach. And I'm like, fitness coach, what's that? Do I get to use my skills as a trainer? And they're like, no, it's even better. Like, you just get to like work in an office, and when people are interested in memberships, you're going to get to convince them to be a member. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. And then it became like very sales heavy, and where's your leads? And you got to walk on the floor and ask people to bring in their friends. And I'm like, oh, well, like, if you were the member on the floor, it's like, well, maybe I just want to have a conversation with Steven and hear how his workouts are going. Why does every conversation that I have with Steven have to be about how many friends he's bringing me, right? So I can sign more people up. And so those types, not all fitness cultures are that way, but the fitness industry can be that way, where it's very corporate culture, very high. It's more, you really are better off having a degree in business in some cases, because it's so focused on sales, on metrics, on hitting numbers. To me, that was sort of something that I realized that made me want to get out of that industry and really focus on the research side of things. When I went to UConn after leaving Bally's, and so I went into the research route after that. But the industry is for every good thing that we talk about, of what it does for people and for the members, the people that actually matter. For the employees, sometimes there's it's like a facade of something that what it's actually like to work in that venue. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I feel like, with as a I've been a business owner for the last 6 years, but I'm moving into a different space as a business owner. And the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is that you have to look at what's not being done for the community, and that is your sell point. And I've been able to learn about the business of wellness and fitness from the nonprofit perspective, from the corporate wellness perspective, from the higher ed perspective, from the professional athlete perspective. I've been blessed to have all these experiences to see where the mark is being missed in the sales and in in the product, where the gaps are in the industry. And the main thing that is consistent across the board is community. And as a sales manager, for Philadelphia Sports Club, they were great, but it was all numbers. It was like, how many memberships are you selling? And like we were making bank because we were like selling like crazy. But the thing that the reason, like, people, when they asked me, when we went to like our regional meetings, they were like, how are you so successful with your sales? I got to know the people that were coming into the gym. Like I wanted to make the sale, but I also cared about the people that were there because that was my community. Mm-hmm. And, before I got into, teaching fitness classes, I moved from sales manager to operations manager and then to assistant manager. And I was responsible for that space. I was responsible for the safety of those people. I was responsible for their wellness. I was responsible for the community, the culture in that space. And so I learned to care about those people, and they wanted, because I created a atmosphere and a culture of care. They brought their friends. They were like, you know what? You got to come here because Steve is great. He's a manager that cares about the people that come here. And as I'm opening my own studio, at the core of what we do is care. And yes, we are a luxury luxury high-end wellness experience. People need that care, and people will invest into that care. And I think the investment is the financial part is a minimal part of the experience.
Absolutely.
Because they get so much. My thing is like, and I got this from my mom. She was like, people that feel like their heart is cared for, where they feel seen, heard, validated, they are more inclined to be loyal to you, not because the workout is great. Like the workout being great, the you giving them this amazing body and physique and increasing their health and wellness. How you make them feel is the most important aspect to the wellness experience. And I think that is what the industry will continue to lack because they put profits over people. I work with an amazing soul. Her name is Noelle Cordell. She is the founder and CEO of Journey, now Lumia, which is a coaching company. I actually met her at Drexel, and you got to meet her.
She was there.
When we were at
the
coffee shop, and she was the first person to tell me about relational equity, and that relational equity needs to be the currency of anything that you do. Like our relationship, you connect me with because we are cool, because we have affection for each other. Like it has connected. You've been able to use your platform to connect me to other opportunities, and vice versa. And I can educate your students, and they can come into my space and get the experience that they need. Like it's a relational equity we share, and it's not tit for tat, but it's like okay, if you need me, I'm there for you, and vice versa. And one of the things that I feel in the industry, there's not a lot of loyalty. Because the loyalty is to the money. The loyalty is to the opportunity rather than to the person. And as an entrepreneur now, the best advice that I got was get 1,000 loyal customers that love you, and they will make you successful.
Where'd you hear that, Stephen?
I think you told me that.
Did I tell you that?
Did you tell me that?
Well,
I think you told me that.
I read that from there's a book by Tim Ferriss who wrote the book The 4-Hour Workweek.
Okay.
And Tim Ferriss, he's got a podcast called the Tim Ferriss Show it's called. And he interviewed this guy named Kevin Kelly, who is part of Wired magazine. And the idea was 1,000 true fans. And the idea is that if you have 1,000 true fans and you really, really care for those people and make sure that you're providing a good service and a good value for their dollar, and you care about them, relationship building, you'll have effectively all the money that you need to live a very comfortable lifestyle for your business, right? Yeah, you don't have to worry about growing it 10x that number, 100,000 people. But that's the minimum number where if you just focus on those 1,000 loyal customers, take good care of them, they'll take care of you, right? And because it goes down to asking people how they're doing and actually caring about the answer.
One of the things that I recently was working at Lifetime, and great company, great culture. One of the best experiences I've had in the fitness industry as an educator, as a movement leader. They pay very well. I made ridiculous money. One of the things that I've tried to help with their community is educating their coaches on care. And they will always ask me, they're like, why are your classes so successful? Like, why do people love you? I'm like, because I love them. Like, I genuinely care about their experience, and I care about what is going on in their lives. Like, I know the names of their children. I know the names of their spouses. I know when I pay attention, like, observational awareness is one of the best skills that you can develop as a movement leader, because if you can see when someone is, I think this is kind of my PT rehab, strength conditioning coach, training and awareness. Like, when you can see those micro imbalances in the body, the imbalances in the breathing, when they're leaning to the side, or if they're like, when you can pay attention to those things and give the coaching and adjustment, and they can viscerally have a change in their movement experience, people appreciate that. But then also being able to look at their posture and see that it's not a physical imbalance, but it's an emotional imbalance, and you can stop them and say, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Like, people care about that. They're like, this person actually, excuse my French, they give a fuck about me. And that means so much to people. Like, they want to be cared for.
Sure.
Because it's like, care is a commodity. And not to sell it, but like, people want that, like, and it's not enough of it. And we experienced that during the pandemic. Like, the Drexel virtual wellness program was really successful because we got to know the people that were taking the classes. We built community when there was no community, right? So we had this 45-minute experience where people could connect. It was really only 30 minutes of movement and like 15 minutes of just checking in. How are you doing? What do you need? How are you supported? How can I care for you? How can I create more connection from you? And I think also, as a faith leader, I always pray over my classes because I feel like that sets the atmosphere, like the spiritual and emotional atmosphere. And it's like, if you come into a space and you feel really good, you're like, God, this space feels really good. Like, it opens your body up to move more effectively. And so, like, I start all my classes with prayer, I end all my classes with prayer. And even to the people who aren't of the same faith lineage, I still try and incorporate their faith as well. Like, as a yoga teacher, I try not to practice cultural appropriation, even though yoga is for everybody, and there are parts that are from other cultures. Like, it's a melting pot of movement that has lasted for thousands of years, and I think a lot of the philosophical culture has originated from the Hindu faith, and a little bit of the Buddhist faith. I try not to practice cultural appropriation, meaning that I try not to practice things that I don't know and that I have not immersed myself in and that I don't fully understand. I try and take the asana and how it feels good in my body, the movement, how it feels good in my body, and relate it to my faith, what I know. And I try and think about, like, how someone of another faith might feel. So I try and educate myself about yoga philosophy, Hindu philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, Islamic philosophy, Judaic philosophy. Like, I try and take in as much as possible. And I take in the parts that, like, aside from us having our own view of who the creator was or is, I try and just take, like, what is going to make you a better person? Right? So it's like, if Islam can make you a better person, go to Islam. If Judaism can make you a better person, go to Judaism. I feel like, for me, there are parts of Christianity that are very toxic, but then there are parts of it that are not Christianity, the Christian religion. Let me be clear. The faith should make you a better person. The corporate religion is where that's toxic and problematic. So I try and employ like the faith parables that are going to make you a better person, that are going to connect you to that wellspring of energy that's going to help you be full and healthy. And so like I try and take parables from all different religions to educate people that there are other experiences out there that can make you a better person. In the same way that different movement platforms are going to make you a better person, they're going to elicit a different type of fitness, wellness experience in your body that you may not know. Like right now I'm having a ball with Pilates and introducing men to Pilates. Like, so one of the ways that I've gotten a lot of guys into my Pilates classes and trainings is I tell them that it's going to make their sex life better, which it does. Like pelvic floor activation, deep core integration really helps with increasing your stamina. It helps with maintaining a stronger, firmer erection. It helps with maintaining endurance and like all the positive things, right? And at the end of the day, like men who are hypersexual, they're like, yeah, like I want to be better in bed. Like that's a big part for the male experience. But then they learn, they're like, oh, like there are other benefits to it that outside of the
Right.
me becoming a sexual master, right? My sexual prowess increases. It's like, yes, that is how I get you in. But the real work is done when they start to experience parts of their bodies that they would have never experienced. Like I work with a lot of football players and a lot of like power lifters, strength guys, and they're connecting to those micro muscles. They're connecting to their mobility. They're learning how the muscles spiral around the bone and how energy travels from the ground into your core. And they're learning the physiomechanics around movement that's helping their overall movement get better.
Yeah, even people perhaps that were already, have been exercising and they just don't really necessarily realize, they know how to perform a movement because they were coached to do it, let's say.
Right.
But then actually becoming like really intentional.
Yes.
And paying attention to how you're breathing and how that feels and how the muscle is moving during the exercise. A lot of people, I don't know to the extent that a lot of people are doing a lot of that.
They aren't. And I think there's a difference between what's functional and what's corrective. And I am big on corrective exercise. How can we, because corrective exercise means that we take into account your body against the standardization of movement. And we say, what is best for your body? What is functionally corrective for your body? So like a lot of times, like let's say squats, right? Squats is like the most thing that it's the one exercise that everybody discusses. It's like, what is the right way to squat? Toes turned out, knees externally rotated. Should you be in parallel stance, and should your knees externally rotate? Like it's so much research around what is the proper way to do the squat.
Right.
And it needs to be what's the proper way to do a squat for you. Right? And it's for the activity, for the purpose, where you were talking about the intention. What is the intention behind the exercise? Are you trying to get stronger? Are you trying to build endurance? Are you trying to build mobility? Like, are you trying to build muscle flexibility? Like, what is the purpose? What is the intention behind the exercise? Do you want to just get a bigger butt? Like, so then maybe you may not do a barbell squat. You might do a body weight squat and you focus on muscular endurance. And then that increases the growth of the muscle.
The context.
Right. So like, I'm enjoying this opportunity where I can introduce someone to a movement pathway, a movement platform that is different from what they know. And at the same time, I get to focus on the mental wellness experience, the emotional wellness experience, really creating that holistic experience of mind, spirit, body connection. And I've had like 4 dudes cry this week because like they're getting releases in their spine. They're getting releases in their hips. They're getting releases in where they've always had back pain, and they're like, "Oh, I can perform this exercise with no back pain. Oh my gosh, I've been in pain for years, and I'm doing this new movement, and it's like I don't have any pain." And it's like, what is life without trauma? What is life without pain? And then it's like, okay, now that you've experienced this freeness, this openness in your body, what would it feel like to have that in your emotional experience, in your mental
Right.
experience, in relationship with your partner, in relationship with your family, with your career. And these guys are having these paradigm shifts from the movement practice. And it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
somebody told me, they was like, "You a witch." I was like, "I'm not a witch. I'm a Christian man." Okay. I was like, "This is just good movement, and it's care. I care about your body." And I was like, it's not magic. It's not witchcraft. I was like, this is intentional wellness, and this is what wellness should have been a long time ago. But I think we had, and the industry has been hyper focused on making money, and there's a lot of gatekeeping, and it's like we want to keep the secrets so that we keep the people
Sure.
coming.
Yeah, I
And
can
it's
see that.
like there's so much information out there that lay people aren't going to remember all this stuff. Like, we're geeks because we like this stuff. So like we are constantly trying to absorb the information because we want to make movement science, exercise science better. We want to increase the field. So we're learning as much as we can. We're having as many experiences as we can. But there aren't a lot of people that are like us that really love the science of movement, that really are like, you know what, how can we make this feel better? And how can we make it better, not just from an academic perspective, but like from a functional integrative perspective. So like the stuff that we're doing in the lab, that we're researching, like how can we communicate this to the communities that need it the most? And for me, I really want to focus on accessibility of this information.
Accessibility, yeah. I mean, that's kind of, when you were working in the recreation center here at Drexel, that's one of the things that we were really figuring out is in 2021, there was the Fresh Checks Day, right?
Yes,
Remember
he
that?
has such a, that was,
And
I will say mine was the best. They've done it.
It was great.
They've
Yeah.
done it after, but I feel like mine was the best.
But to your point, like one of the things that we know from a research perspective is if you do something like a body composition assessment, like an in-body, super easy, get that done in a minute, that you can figure out where the person's, let's say, body fat is today, total body fat percentage of the total weight that is in fat weight, and
Right.
you could figure out goal weights according to certain norms. So, for example, let's say these are just arbitrary numbers I'm throwing off the top of my head.
Use my numbers.
Because folks can't see me right now. But let's say someone's 28% body fat.
Right.
And we look at the normative information from the Cooper Institute, and we say, well, the a good range to be in for health and wellness, let's say, is at 18%. Okay, well, that's a 10% reduction in body fat. But what does that equate to in pounds based off of your lean mass? Because if I know your lean mass, then, and I know your fat mass today based off the percentage I just measured, we could figure out what body weight you have to be to reach that 18%. And how do we then curate an exercise program and a lifestyle program and really a wellness program, as you very nicely articulated, to help demystify all the secrets.
But then even looking at it from the perspective of what's sustainable, right? Because I think sometimes we are like, oh, everything is cut your body fat, cut your body fat, cut your body fat, right? And then like we were talking about the different types of body fat.
Right.
And so if we're really focused on being healthy needs to be sustainable. Like even bodybuilders, like they know you have your bulking season, you have your cutting season, then you have your competition season. Your competition season is not sustainable. It is not humanly possible to sustain that for long periods of time because the body's going to break down. So it's like really figuring out what is healthy for that individual.
Absolutely.
And I think like that is the issue for me, that is my issue with the wellness community, is that what we're telling people isn't sustainable. It needs to be. We have to take into consideration, okay, sustainability is more than just like the consistency and the discipline to do it, because I believe people will do it. But then we have to take into account what their lived experience is like. Do they have children? Do they have a partner? What is their job like? What is their day-to-day life like? Life happens, and sometimes the sustainability of some of the practices and some of the things we ask them to do is just not feasible. So it has to be sustainable, like the eating. So the nutrition has to be sustainable. The movement has to be sustainable. Most importantly, the mindfulness part of it needs to be sustainable. And I think like we just don't make it as accessible. and sustainable as it needs to be. And I think that's why I appreciate like what you do. Like when you came for, like I had this vision for Fresh Check Day. It was like I wanted to get into the minds of our students coming out of the pandemic to really see what their mental wellness was like, what their emotional wellness was like how they were navigating, see if they wanted to be in community with each other, see if they cared about their wellness physically. And we had such a positive response from the students. They were like, heck yeah. First of all, they usually got to pay for an in-body assessment. So they're like, oh, I got a free one. And then they get to also get the information, the understanding of what this data means.
The next steps.
Yes, because a lot of times like the wellness community is like, oh, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. But they don't ever explain to you what that means and then how does it relate to function.
This is the road.
Yes.
To help you. And these are the maps. Like,
right.
I don't want to say road because road kind of implies there's only one route.
Right.
These are the possible routes you could take in light of this new information.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's kind of really, from an exercise as medicine perspective, why we started this podcast was really thinking about, well, there's so many topics that we can talk about, whether it's physiological in nature, whether it's holistic in nature, whether it's really, really good people like yourself that are doing great things, that have a message to share with folks, and really just ensuring that we're providing a platform to share some of this information that can help people, right?
Right.
In not only at the level of Drexel University, but also at large, right? In the world in general. So, just for purposes of time, one of the things I want to do is you talked a lot about, I think your approach to health and fitness. So, you've started Stephen Westbrook Training Systems,
right?
Can you talk a little bit about the work that you do, how this started? Where people can find you, and how it's grown, since the last time. I know we connected about a couple weeks back, but just, how it's grown, sort of how did it start?
Yeah.
And here we are now, as you're got all these folks, and you're working in the community with a lot of major businesses that people would recognize. And can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
So, and I appreciate, because I will go on and on and on because, and when we get together, we just talk.
Yeah.
So sweat came out of, people were like, every class that I take with you, I'm going to sweat. And I'm like, yes, you will sweat. Like, that is the purpose of the class. Like, you are going to sweat in every one of my classes. And so it just kind of like, it became a thing. And I just, and my initials are for my business, Stephen Westbrook Training, sweat. So it, phonetically, it's sweat. And so I just kind of like, I just ran with it. And, it has been such a, so I'll say this, my sweat came out of desperation and a hard time. I had a really, really, really bad breakup, 2 really bad breakups right before I started my business. And, I tell people that I'm very honest and open about my mental wellness and my emotional wellness and how I navigate the two. Movement is how I navigate my mental wellness and maintain my health. Like, if I'm not moving, then something is wrong. And I've only experienced suicidal ideation twice in my life. Once in high school when I came out. It was a really challenging coming out experience. I had a very supportive community, but it was just and it was more internal because I was struggling with my faith and my sexuality. Which a lot of men of color experience and struggle with. And the second time was like I had a really, really bad breakup. And I was so in love with this person. I was like, oh, I'm going to die if I don't be with this person. At the time, I look back and I'm like, okay, that was a lot. I'm a Leo, so I could be a little grandiose. So I was like, that was a lot. That was extra. But at the time, you're 26, like you're like, and I was a late bloomer. So like, I was like so in love. Then I realized I really wasn't that in love. But at the time, it was really challenging for me. And I was like full into my career. Like I was a hardcore strength coach. Like I was very successful, and it was exhaustive doing that work. And I was working 60-hour weeks. I was teaching 30 classes a week and training clients, and like people were like, how do you, and I was in school, they were like, how do you maintain all of this? And I was completely out of my mind. And I prayed, and it came to me that I needed to do yoga. And that's when Sweat was born. It was like, I tell people, like, the things that I am the best at come from trauma and desperation. They were the answer to my trauma and my desperation. And yoga, like, really saved my life. It is how I connected with God on another level. And like, it, for me, my own practice of movement has become a form of worship and connection to God. And it has made me so much more gentle. It's made me a better father figure. It's made me a better friend, a better son, a better coach. Like, it has enhanced every part of my life. So that's what Sweat is. Sweat is the answer to trauma and desperation. Like, I really try and focus on the care model. Like, how can I care for your needs, not based on what I think, but what you are presently in need of? And then I use observational awareness to look at all parts of your experience to really create a holistic wellness approach to your fitness. So I look at, the mental experience, the spiritual, the physical, your financial. Like, I look at all parts of it so that way I can make sure that, we are caring for you, caring for your lived experience. Like, I'm not going to charge a person who's struggling financially the same that I'm going to charge someone who has access and means. Like, right. It's just not equitable, right? And I work with a lot of people. It's like, one of the things that I try and do to make sure that, I can survive is I do group classes. I do small group training so that, one, I was like, I wanted to make it financially accessible to everybody. But what I learned, the real connection was the community I was building. So that became more important than the finance, right, and the money. And the Sweat is a community wellness program. It's an individualized community wellness program. So every person that comes into my program, if they're in a community experience, that community is focused on collaboration, connection, care, but everybody's lived experience is cared for in that community. So I know all your pain points, and at some point in time in this program, your pain points are going to be taken care of. And, it grew so much from doing like these boot camps and virtual classes that, I'm opening a studio this summer called
Congratulations.
PYT. I'm very excited. Thank you. PYT, Pilates, Yoga, Tread. And I thought about all the things that I am like super obsessed with. So like yoga, Pilates, and tread-based functional fitness. Like, if you are trying to reduce I'm gonna say this. If you're trying to burn as many calories for a structural change in your body, tread-based functional workouts are effective. Sprint workouts are really effective, and you don't have to run for it to be a sprint. It's a intense amount of effort expended over a short amount of time, done in succession. And so we really focus on like, how can we create a wellness experience, saying that, okay, you need a little bit of yoga, you need a little bit of Pilates, you need a little bit of functional movement, and how do they all work together? So I created this program called it's called M&M, Mindfulness, Nutrition, and Movement, where we focus on the three parts of the physical experience: the mind, the body, the spirit. And for me, Pilates is for the mind, because it cultivates this intrinsic awareness and proprioceptive awareness in the body so that you can connect to the body. The yoga is more of a spiritual wellness practice, but it also integrates the somatic awareness that you develop from Pilates. And then the functional strength training, core strength training, and movement is like, how can we take that connection that we built in our body, the wellness that we built in connecting to our emotional, spiritual engagement and experience? how does that make you a stronger individual when you perform these exercises? And then how do we take that tenacity and the confidence that we build in the functional training program, and how do we take it outside into our lived experience?
That's
because
awesome.
if you can lift and be confident in a lift and in an exercise, and then you feel like a badass, and then you go out in the world and you carry that same energy, you're going to be able to accomplish anything. And I think that's what people really need. They need a community that encourages their confidence, that edifies them, that cultivates community and care, and lets people feel seen, feel heard, feel validated. People just want to be cared for. Like that's all. That's all we do at PYT is we care for people. And like a lot of people are like, we have a few investors and there's some issues in the wellness community now where like a lot of small boutique businesses are going out of business, and they were like, what's the difference with your business versus these other businesses? And I was like, number one, me. Yeah. I'm a creator. I'm constantly creating. Every workout is different. I am like I'm so like in my head that I'm always thinking about the next workout. And I'm thinking,
vision.
Yeah. So like I had to hire operational manager because like I can't do the day-to-day stuff. I am constantly in the now and in the future, that I need someone that's just in the now. And having that person allows me to constantly be thinking and innovating and creating. And I said, the thing that makes us different is that we care about people. Mm-hmm. For me, it's like I have a small Instagram following. Like I'm not a big social media person, but I know that I know every one of those followers. I have like 1,500 followers. I know every one of them. I know their story. I know their name. I know their experience. I care about them. Like they know that I care about them. And for me, that is better than having 100,000 followers, having 1 million followers. Because if I can quantify the community that I care for, and they know that they're cared for, that they can get support from me, that for me means that I've done my job, that that is my destiny, that is like my purpose fulfilled. And that for me is successful, and like for us, we want to be the best space where you can come and get everything that you need: nutritional coaching, mindfulness coaching, movement coaching. We educate you on how to actually prepare the foods that we coach you to eat. Right? How to maintain the nutrition program so that it's accessible and sustainable. We tell you where to shop. We tell you how to shop. We tell you how to budget. We do all of it. Yeah. And so we're a one-stop shop for all your wellness needs. And not only that, we do we're very big on community activation. In my opinion, there aren't a lot of Black-owned gyms in Philadelphia. And the ones that are here, they're great. I feel like they focus on very specific things. For me, this is not a gym. This is a wellness space.
Gotcha.
We facilitate wellness. It is not about fitness. This is about wellness. And wellness needs to be sustainable. And I think people don't understand the difference between fitness. Fitness is very much like movement-based. It's like calorie cutting. It's like body fat burning. It's like the more visceral side of the movement journey, and like getting a better body and being more healthy. Like it's the data. It's the physical data. The wellness is like more the intrinsic value. Like, how do you feel today? How do you want to feel tomorrow? Yeah. What can make you feel better? What's sustainable to help you maintain that? And that's where we really focus.
Yeah, I would say just sort of to kind of wrap things up and really just kind of integrate what you've said here. It sounds like a lot of what the fitness industry is about is sort of like addressing the what, right? So somebody that comes to a fitness facility, sometimes they're coming there for a specific reason, right? Mm-hmm. And before we started recording, we said a lot of times people exercise for one of three reasons, right? Fun, fear, vanity, right? One of those three reasons, right? It's usually like there's a lot of reasons, but those are like, if you really kind of like categorize it and truncate it down into little groups, it's really one of those three buckets where it's probably going to fall within. So, so what it seems that you're doing, which I think is novel in comparison to a lot of other anything really I've seen in the field, is really kind of getting to the core. And this kind of goes back to something that on the sales side of the fitness industry is really important that we're trained to do, is what's the why? What is the thing that like the person that came in today, usually a common theme that I would hear would be, what are your fitness goals? I don't know. I haven't really thought about them. I want to, I want to tone up and get firm, right? That's a common thing that somebody might say, right? Okay. How much weight, I want to lose weight. How much weight you want to lose? I want to lose 50 pounds. Okay. Where'd that number come from?
Yeah.
Right? You're kind of, you address, it's what it sounds like. Please forgive me if I'm wrong. You really are addressing sort of, well, why are we feeling that way?
Right.
And
the why.
What's kind of, this is the result of something underlying that.
Yes. Is this what you want, or is this what society expects from you?
Right.
And why does society expect that from you? Like, we cater right now. When I got into fitness, like, I was like, I'm gonna train a bunch of dudes. Like, I was always like an athlete, so I worked out with I was a D1 athlete. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'm going to train D1 athletes. And then luckily I did. I wound up training at Drexel, which was awesome, because they have awesome athletes. Those kids are like powerhouses. They train harder than I did when I was in college, but they also have a lot more science now and support more than what we had. They were just like workout, and it was just like, give it your best. And even more than that, they're like, we don't care if you're about to throw up on yourself, like repeat on yourself. You keep pushing. Now science has evolved and the program has evolved, and so we've been able to see significant growth in how we coach and what we can get performance wise out of our athletes. That was not who I got. I got moms. Nothing but moms. And they were obsessed with me. And my workouts are hard. Like, my mom calls them prison workouts. She's like, this is a jailhouse workout. She's like, you're prepping for Armageddon. She's like, Steve will have you jumping fences. Like, she even my yoga classes, which I think I am very gentle in my yoga classes, but she's like, they're intense. And so I was like, this is just do the work, right?
Yep.
And so I got nothing but moms, and I was just like, I've learned I love working with women. Their checks clear. They don't mind about paying the bill. They're on time. They're easy. They listen. They're just awesome. And so as I was navigating who our target demographic was, I realized that I wanted to facilitate care for women, because we live in a world that denigrates women and demoralizes them, and this world doesn't value women in the way that it should. And so I wanted to create a space where women felt valued, where they felt seen, where they felt heard. Just looking at the nature of healthcare, it's not focused. It's not woman centered. Like, just knowing that here in Philadelphia, that women have the highest mortality rates postnatal, because the care is just not there. So one of the things that we're focusing on at the studio is providing that postnatal wellness. Like, what does that look like? And there are postnatal services here in Philadelphia, but they are for the elite. Mm-hmm. Normal people can't afford those services. And so we want to provide that type of care and access and support through support groups and education. And for me, it has always been, how can I support a community that is underrepresented? Like, we are heavily focused on Black women, like providing support and care. For me, being raised by Black women and being cultivated by Black women, me wanting to pour back into that community. In my opinion, I feel like Black women make the world go round. And Dr. Jamat, she's making the world go round.
She sure is.
I think it's really important that we create spaces for these marginalized communities. Like, I don't feel like there are any safe spaces where queer men can go to get the wellness that they need, mental, emotional, spiritual, where it's not a hypersexual community or where there's a predatory experience there. You're just there because people care about you, they love you, and they want to see you well. Like, that's what we're providing at PYT. Like, and even for me being a Christian Black queer man, experiencing that hypermasculinity, that hypersexualization, I understand what other men go through. And so, there is an expectation for queer men that you have to be hypermasculine, that you have to, have muscles and you need to be fit all the time. And it's like, but where's the mental wellness, the spiritual wellness, the emotional wellness? And so we want to provide that in our space where people can just come and decompress and relax. And so the why for me is always like, the most important aspect of it. Why do you feel you need to have muscles? Why do you feel you need to have a 29-inch waist? Why do you feel you need why do you need these things? Are these things really going to make you happy? And if not, let's figure out what's going to make you happy, and then let's make it happen. So, that's what we do. I say I don't like saying manifesting. I feel like because there's so much magic surrounding manifesting, I say what can we produce? Like from the perspective of fruition. Like, what seeds can we plant? How can we water it? How can we grow it so that you produce fruit from the cultivating experience? And you produce a good tree with good fruit, you'll have something to eat.
Got to give it water. Got to give it sunlight. Got to
love.
Take care of it.
And if you take care of a good plant, like, it's going to provide you with oxygen. It's going to provide you with all the good feels. And if it's a fruiting plant, then it's going to provide you with sustenance, and that will keep you going. And that's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to provide support to a community that is exhausted. Like, after coming out of the pandemic, we realized, like, oh, you guys are tired. You need help. You're in that desperation state where I was there 7 years ago. And it's like, so you don't get to where I was. Let me provide you these support systems that allow you to pull yourself out of the trauma, pull yourself out of the desperation, pull yourself out of the anxiety and the depression. Because I think a lot of times, like, we think that everything has to be external support. My belief is that you have everything in your body that you need to be successful. Everything else is accessory. Medical doctors, therapists, coaches. At the end of the day, it's internal, because they all tell you to look within inside yourself to do that work. Doctors, they're going to say, okay, you need to get healthy. These are the issues. This is what you need to be doing. You need to be taking these medicines. You need to be exercising. You need to be eating healthy. Therapist, this is what I see. These are the things that you need to work on. All of the work has to be done from within. And so for us, we say, do the work that's within. Still go to the doctor. Still talk to your therapist. Still talk to your coach. But at the end of the day, the choice lies with you. And we want to teach you how to make the best choices for you so that you get to your desired goal, your desired location, destination.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
That was a conversation, Stephen Westbrook.
Thank you, sir.
I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
And where can people, for people that want to increase your Instagram following, where can people find you on social? How can they, if they want to, participate and do any work with you, where can people find you?
Easiest way to find me is at Instagram. Social media is the easiest way to go. It's Stephen Westbrook III, so STEVEN WESTBROOK III. It's the same for Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. You can shoot me an email at Stephen Westbrook Training, or you can go to my website, StephenWestbrookTraining.com. Yeah, it's just like I'm very accessible, and I love doing this work, and any support that I can give to you, I would love to provide it. The studio is PYT, Pilates Yoga Tread. We are located at 1712 North Conestoga. Oh my goodness, wrong address. We are located at 1712 North 2nd Street. That's right off of 2nd and Cecil B. Moore and Northern Liberties. It's a really cool location. Really excited about where we're going to be. And we open this summer
Very cool.
in July. So we would love to have you come and just be in community with us. And we have some really cool programming that we're going to be doing there. And we would love you to be a part of the work.
I really appreciate it. Well, anytime as the studio becomes ready for its launch and opening, I'll definitely make sure that I come and support you as you've come and supported us. And I know we're talking about some other things for students that are in the program, for cooperative education opportunities, so that'll be down the pike as well.
Yeah, we have teacher training coming, like yoga teacher training coming, where it's a 9-month program, but you come out with a 300-hour yoga teacher certification. We build your website. We pay for your first year of insurance. You get functional experience as a teacher. And I'm in the process of trying to get some accreditation with NASM and ACSM so we can get that functional accreditation. But yeah, I'm really excited about like the education part. That's really, I'm really passionate about that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think the most.
Future's bright.
Yes.
Future's bright. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know you got a busy schedule, and so doing this for me and talking to some of our listeners, it's been a real treat.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure being here. As usual, it's always awesome to sit down with you. So thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you all next time on EIMOC at Drexel. Take care.